Welcome to the first Code With Me video for Chapter 14. In this video, we're going to be dealing specifically with the pet grooming folder. So go ahead and load up the pet grooming folder into brackets, and go ahead and load up the index page into your favorite browser. You can see that some CSS has already been added. Let me make this a little easier to look at. There we go. So that way we can actually scroll the whole thing. So some CSS has been added, which is very good. You can browse through the different pages and see different items, such as lists, tables, and other items we'll be modifying. And look, a form, yay. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is take a look at the index page right here. And you can see the actual code itself has a lot of notes. For example, this design is essentially 3 rows: header, nav wrapper, and wrapper. Nav wrapper lets us display the background color, and then you have the actual content, and we are good. You can also go through the other HTML files as well, but since the other ones have pretty much the same thing, although this is actually a nice spit-back form handler in pure JavaScript, that's what we're going to run to modify our form. Professor Fell actually did a good job writing this so that once we actually get the form data, it'll spit back what we put in and not have to use a external processor to run this. You can also go into the CSS and take a look at the CSS here and study it quite well, because the information here is, well, should not be modifiable. We're actually going to be adding everything down here for our lists, tables, and forms. Alright, so the very first thing is to explore the default white space. So we're going to add some items under the list comments. So add some new lines. We're going to add UL, OL, and DL. And for this, we're going to specify border of red, solid, and 1 pixel. Close, save, and refresh. Index page, we see the actual spacing of the unordered list. We see the ordered lists. Go to services. We see unordered, and a DL list, or a data description list. In contact, we see an unordered list, and I don't know if you notice this, but we actually have an unordered list in the navigation, and that's that red border right there, which is perfectly good for what we want. You can also go in and specify the actual list items, data terms, and data definitions. So LI, DT, and DD, border, blue, solid, 1px. Add a new line, save, refresh, and now you can see that each of the list items in pretty much any of the lists now have a blue line around them, specifying the difference between the actual list itself and each list item. All right, let's see. All right, all lists, the red borders, the left edge of the border is aligned with the rest of the page content, so there is no default margin or space or outside the border. Both the ordered and unordered list displays white space inside the border, basically this padding right here, on the left, causing the element or the contents to indent. So they have some default left padding. The description lists DT elements on the services page right here are flush against the left edge, so there is no default padding because there's no default padding built in. The LI elements, both inside the ordered and unordered lists, don't have any default margin or padding. The padding is actually from the list itself. The DD elements inside the description list have white space to the left of their borders, which is caused by the default left margin right here. So in summary, ordered and unordered lists, no default margins and some default left padding. Ordered and unordered list items don't have default margin or padding, and item markers display outside the border. Description lists and terms, no default margin or padding. And description details, no default padding, but some left margin. Alright, so now that we've done that, we should delete our rules and move on, because that was just temporary for us to understand where the limitations are for those items. Alright, we're going to style the description list. So next thing I'm going to do is replace that with DT, or description term, font weight bold, and margin top 1 REM. Don't forget that is the relative or the root spacing around the actual element. So we save, we refresh, and we can see that the DT has been bolded and there is space between the last item and the next DT. We're also going to stylize the description definition. So we go back up here, we say margin left 1 REM. We save, we refresh, and now you see that the spacing, instead of the default, is now 1 REM, so root measurement. And that is actually spacing it away, same here, to the same here. Alright, next is 14.2. So we're going to go into the HTML page, the index page right here. And inside of the OL, so line 51 right here, going to specify type with the capital A. Okay, let's get on a page that we can see that. Here we go, ABC. We save, we refresh, make sure it's there. I'm going to delete this just to make sure we did the right thing. 1, 2, 3, good. So type capital A, good. So now the list items are now numbered as A, B, and C versus 1, 2, and 3. So we're going to go back to our CSS. Going to add a new line. We're going to say OL list style. List style type. It's going to be upper Roman. So save your changes and save your changes, refresh the page. Now the pages are upper Roman numerals. So uppercase I, uppercase II, uppercase III. It's still an ordered list and it works. Let's change it to something else, such as lower Greek. Let's see, does that work? It does. This is not available via basic HTML because it's actually using the lowercase Greek characters, alpha, beta, delta. Alpha, beta, gamma. Blech. Greek letters, I should know that. Let's see what else we have. Let's see, decimal leading 0. That's 3 words with dashes in between them. Save, refresh, and now you have 0, 1, 0, 2, and 0, 3. Good. Alright, save the changes. The list items are now sequenced with numbers again, but the numbers display leading 0s. For the design of this site, the default numbering is appropriate. So we can actually just say either decimal, or you can just delete that entire declaration by itself. Return to brackets and delete the OL rule. There should be a single blank line between the DD rule and the table's content. So everything we just did, because I forgot to close it, delete. Go back to the HTML and delete the OL type. So basically all we did was back to nothing. Okay, let's see, we're going to modify the unordered list next. So we're going to go back here, specify UL, close our brackets because we're good developers. List style type circle. Now if you recall from the lecture, the disk is the default. The disk is the filled in circle. If we just say list style type circle, we refresh, you now see the circle or the donut is now here with an empty center. List items in every unordered list on all the pages display a hollow circle for a bullet rather than the default solid disk. Okay, so we're going to keep the circle as is, but now we're going to add an image list style. And to do this, we're going to add the list image style above the list style type. The list style type is going to be the fallback. So for the image, we're going to say list style image, going to specify URL, and put our URL of the image inside that. Now again, you can use quotes inside. I would recommend it just as good practice. You don't have to, but let's keep going. Going to back out of the previous folder, or out of the current folder, go into the images folder, and then icon paw.png. That's icon-paw, P-A-W.png. Let's save. Let's take a look. And now we got neat little paw prints for the list of items. If the images cannot be found for some reason, then the list style type circle is going to be the fallback. So please make sure you have a list style type as a fallback for that. All right, next we're going to... Oh, really? Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Let's see. We're going to style an individual list item. So we're going to apply the list style type or image to a UL on every list item. Or apply them all to a single list item and style that by itself. So we're going to go to the contact page right here. And we're going to specify these two items right here. So we're going to go to the contact.html page. Okay, go to line 32 for the email address, 32. We're going to give the list item a class. This class is going to be email. For the next one, we're going to add a class to the li of phone. Now, if you go ahead and add those and you refresh, there's no visual difference because in the CSS, there is nothing for it to actually specify. So we're going to be adding that now. Class email. Close, because we're good developers. List style type. Or I'm sorry, image. List style image. URL images icon email. Good. So if we save, we refresh, and now the specific email one has an email icon even though it's still an li, and the other one has the default of a paw because of the previous rule. Going to add a new rule of phone list style image URL quotations go into the images folder and say icon phone. Save, refresh, and now with very minimal modification to the HTML, we have stylized this list item and this list item to have different list style images. Now, of course, the list style type circle will be the fallback. It's not required, but it's a good practice to have. Let's see, 14.5, we're going to experiment with positioning list markers. So click after the phone rule, add the following rule for the list item, border, spell border right, border red solid 1px. Save, refresh, and now all the list items have an actual border around them, including the list items in the navigation. So basically similar to something that we did in the first one. All right, and we're going to add something else. It's a list style position inside. Now before I save and refresh, take a look at where these paws are as in relation to the actual list item. Once I save and refresh, now the paws, including the ordered list, are all inside. If we go to the contact page, you notice that the email and the phone are also inside as well. And because the image is much bigger than the one after it, the email is bumped up or bumped over just a bit. So hopefully you see a better idea about how you can position the list style item inside or outside the spacing. Okay, so without visible borders, the change in the mark position isn't obvious except for the wrapped text. Do we have any wrapped text on this page? I don't think so. No wrapped text. so a little hard to determine the actual reference of it. Oh, here we go. So in the ordered list, we see that number 3 has bumped the text over, and the rest of the text starts basically where the number 3 is. If we delete this line and have the list style position in the default position, you can see now that the alignment is now inside the box and the number 3 is outside versus the previous item. Alright, for the last one, do we delete? Yeah, we need to delete this. Okay, because this is unnecessary for what we need to do. Okay, we're going to add the list shorthand. Change the selector in the UL right here, to just say list style. We're going to list the image first, and then if you want, you can actually list the type after that. So we save, we'll refresh, and now you have the image loaded as the UL with the circle as the default, which is perfectly fine. That is everything for this first video. In the next video, we're talking about stylizing tables. So if you have any questions about this or anything in Chapter 14, please send me an email or hit me up on Twitter, and I'll get back to you with the best possible answer.